Welcome to this week's Old School Update, and today we have potentially the biggest PvP update of the year, along with Bounty Hunter that's going to be coming later in the next few months. Regardless, today's update brings an absolutely massive rework to the Wilderness bosses. On the surface, here are the 3 locations for the new Wilderness boss caves. All 3 of these locations will take you to the multi-combat variant encounter. And in order to access the layers, you'll have to pay a 50k GP entry fee, and this will decrease by 10k GP for every boss kill you rack up. And while taking on one of the new bosses, if you do have to suffer a PVM death rather than a PvP death, your gravestone will appear outside the entrance of whichever boss layer you died in. So for example, if you died in Callisto, your gravestone will appear just outside of Callisto's den. But now first up for Callisto, obviously they're not going to give us a ton of information prior to the update actually launching, but a few quick pieces of information they did give us. Steer clear of the bear traps, which are the little icons on the ground, and there are a handful of attacks that'll want to keep you at a distance, and he will enrage in later stages of the fight. So as the fight length continues to get longer, he's probably going to get stronger and or attack faster. And then for Venenatis with a sneak peek of the new room. And one new mechanic they do give us a sneak peek of is the fact that he's going to be using his shield this time. So anytime he does raise it, make sure you stop attacking because any hits you do on him will deflect back onto yourself. And then finally we have Venenatis in the nice new blue cave. And Venenatis will try to keep her distance while bombarding you with magic and range attacks. And you want to watch where you'll step because there's going to be a new nasty web attack you can get stuck inside of. On top of that, there's also going to be spiderlings that are spawned that have just a few HP and basically no defense. I'm assuming very similar to that of the Zora snakelings, but they will feast on your prayer points when they do attack you. And then next up with this update, we have the escape caves. Regardless of whichever one of the boss's lairs you enter, regardless of whichever one of the new boss's encounters you leave, you will be placed in one of the entrances of the escape cave. If you log out in one of the encounters, you will also be placed in here, and anybody following you outside the entrance will be placed in the exact same spot within 10 seconds. So if a PKer attacks you in the Callisto boss room, if you both walk out of the encounter, you'll be placed in the exact same spot in the escape room as long as they left less than 10 seconds after you. And a slight thing to note, inside of these escape caves, there are going to be bears, skeleton, and poison spiders. But rather than the normal low-level variants, these are going to be subspecies that attack you with magic, and constantly your prayer will be drained over time while you're inside of this cave. This is going to be a massive twist on PKing, and I'm very interested to see how it works out with escaping. Now moving on, we have all of the changes with the current rev weapons. First up, the Thammaron Sceptre has a massive rehaul, making it a powered staff similar to that of the Trident of the Seas or the Sang Staff. The staff will cost 1 ether per cast, very similar to that of the other rev weapons. At 99 magic, your base hit will be 25, increasing by 50% against Wilderness NPCs, and then further benefiting from any gear that increases your magic damage percentage. But then for the new variant of the Sceptre, we have the Accursed Sceptre. And this is if you can get a hold of the Skull Drop from Venenatis. You'll be able to attach it with 85 crafting or by paying Andrus May 500k in the Ferox Enclave. And the Accursed Sceptre itself is also tradable, and your base magic damage hit will go up to 27, along with a brand new special attack being Condemn, which your max hit is increased by 50%, and on your hit the target's defense and magic are reduced by a maximum of 15%. Then we have the Webweaver Bow, which will require you to attach the fangs of Venenatis onto the current crossbow. This process would require 85 fletching, or you can once again pay 500k, this time to Fable Bile. This bow will require 70 range and has a ranged attack of 85 with 65 range strength. This is in comparison to the crossbow's 75 ranged attack and 60 range strength. Not to mention it also gains the special attack Swarm, which unleashes 4 attacks in rapid succession with increased accuracy, and each of these attacks is capped at 40% damage, which would theoretically max you out at 160% damage output if every attack max hit. Not to mention that on top of this, successful attacks have a chance to inflict poison on hit, which will start out at 4 damage. Then last but not least, we have the Ursine Chainmace. This upgrade will require you to get the Claws of Callisto, And this upgrade will require 85 smithing in order to attach it, or 500k to Venenatis in the Ferox Enclave. The Ursine Chainmace will require 70 attack and come with the brand new special attack Bear Down. Bear Down will also cost 50% of your special attack energy and hit with 100% improved accuracy. If Bear Down does hit, it'll deal 20 damage over the next 6 seconds. It prevents running for 3.6 seconds, which is 6 ticks, and reduces the target's agility level by 20. I'm definitely interested to see how this weapon particularly impacts both escaping and PvPing. And then finally we have the Voidwaker, which is essentially the old school variation of the Korasi sword. Each boss drops one piece of the Voidwaker weapon, the blade, the hilt, and the crystal. All 3 components are tradable, and an NPC beneath the Old Knight in Ferox Enclave will be able to assemble it for 500k. It'll require 75 attack, 75 strength, and 60 magic in order to equip it. And in itself, the Voidwaker stats aren't inherently that strong, but it comes with the special attack Disrupt. Disrupt will cost 50% of your special attack energy, and guarantee magic damage between 50 to 150% of your melee max hit. Another slight change that came with this week's update is that pets have seen a graphical rework. So the Callisto, Venenatis, and Venenatis pet have all received slight graphical upgrades to match the new variants. Although if you do prefer the old variation of the pets, they all now have a metamorphosis option which will let you choose between the old and new appearances. And if multi-combat isn't your thing, this week's update also brings 3 new solo variations of the Callisto, Venenatis, and Venenatis bosses. These are Artio, Calvarion, and Spindel. And they're essentially just toned down solo versions of the current Wildy bosses, located all below 30 wilderness. The web chasm is located in the ruins. The skeletal tomb is inside of the Graveyard of Shadows, and then the Hunter's End is just left of the fountain. Access to these layers also requires the same fee system, but there's no additional web of escape caves involved whenever you do leave these encounters. So instead, you'll basically enter the lair, pay the fee, fight the boss, and assuming you don't ultimately die, you'll either teleport out or exit the lair and arrive back on the surface wherever you did enter. You will be rewarded with similar loot, but it will be toned down in comparison to the multi-variants. You'll have a solid chance of acquiring the rings, pets, and the elusive dragon pickaxe, very similar to that of the drop rates prior to this week's update. And on top of that, you have a significantly lower chance of also walking away with one of the new unique drops. So it sounds like it is going to be incredibly rare, but there is always a chance you could pull something big from one of these solo encounters in comparison to just getting a much better drop rate at the multivariants. Now for some Revenant changes. The Revenant weapons have a 50% increased drop rate, and to be dropped 5 times more common if you're killing them on Slayer task. And if you want to see those drop rates specifically, there is a blog right here you can click on, or I'm sure it'll be on the wiki here soon. But basically a 50% increase on all of the different Revenant types. You can just scroll down and see what the new drop rate is going to be. The first thing is off of Slayer task, and the second drop rate is what it would be on Slayer task. And along with this week's update, the Dragon Pickaxe will now also be an available drop from the Calphite Queen, and as a reward from the Volcanic Mine. The drop rate for the Calphite Queen will be 1 in 400. In order to get it through the Volcanic Mine, you'll have to exchange it for ore packs. Will drop you a broken variant, and Nermoth the Dwarf will be able to repair it for you for 2.5 mil. On top of that, the King Black Dragon's drop rate for the pickaxe has been adjusted from 1 in 1500 to 1 in 1000. And then to end off this week with a few slight changes, the Zerite crossbow with the Sapphire bolts has been adjusted after player feedback, and the Phantom Muspah's drops have been further tweaked. Torsal seeds have been reduced from 5 to 4. The Snapdragon herb drop has been reduced from 31 herbs to 5 seeds. The Dragon plate legs from 3 to 2. Runite ore from 23 to 18. The Renar seeds from 10 to 8. And Toad flax herbs from 74 to 55. So that's all for today's massive update. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video or found it helpful. If you did, consider dropping a like or subscribe to the channel if you're new. And I'll catch you guys later today with a first look at some of the new bosses.